like to call our meeting to order. This is a special call meeting today. There are a few things on the agenda. The first thing on the agenda is to approve change order 1 for cafeteria expansion at the Muhlenberg County High School.
Good morning, thank you Chairman Rager, board members. This is a change order for the cafeteria expansion. There are 2 items that are up for change. There was a section of conduit when they were doing demolition that was routed in a wall that was not on plans, so they had to reroute the conduit. It's a simple fix. And then there was they want to increase the width of a door that was 36 inches wide to 42 inches wide. And so the increase in cost is $18,372.22, and it's covered by the contingency amount that's set in the PG plan.
Any discussion? If not, I need a motion to approve the change order. I think I have a motion by Mr. Bowers and a second by Mr. Johar. All in favor of approving the change order 1 for the cafeteria expansion at the high school, please say aye. All opposed? I hear none.
Thank you.
So now we're down to approve facilities use agreements. Everyone had this in our packet prior to the meeting today. If there's no questions, I need a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Have a motion by Ms. Wells, second by Mr. Johar. All in favor of approving the facilities use agreement, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? I hear none. And we'll move on down now to consider amending the 21-22 calendar. Mr. Latham.
Mr. Davis wants to speak
I'm
first.
going to give you a bit of an overview before he breaks it down, kind of tell you where we are. We was really hoping that, we've been talking about these tornado relief days for some time now, HB 397, and supposedly we're going to vote on them last week. And then earlier this week and every day I'm hearing the same thing. It's on a consent agenda, which is, we have consent agendas here. Those are pretty confident, very, very confident everybody I talk to this is going to pass. But it hasn't officially. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and amend the calendar under the condition that it's up to date. I've been assured again. So I don't want to bring you guys back together for that. So there's a couple other moves with state tournament day that Rick's going to talk about. But the move today would be to go ahead and assume that that's going to pass, and that way we don't have to wait till middle April to have that call. So when it does, we're locked in. And if it doesn't, if it's voted down, we'll have to have a special call meeting and amend the calendar the other way. But I want to get to where I think we're likely to be going anyway, so Stacy's mom will know, and other folks will know when graduation is, and you know, the final day, which will be May 16th. That one day that we went state tournament pushes us to a Monday, and that's okay. It's not ideal, but that's just where it falls. Donna, as I will go ahead and tell you, as she said last time, in that event, she will be calling graduation May 13th, which is the Friday before, instead of waiting all the way to a Friday. So Brent will take you through it, but again, this part of it will be under the assumption, under the condition that the legislature goes ahead and passes that today, or even if they pass it next week, we've got it in place. But as soon as they do, we can be 100% official and put it out. So Brent, I'll let you talk about moving those days and all that.
Okay, I'll keep it brief and then give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions you have. But you have in front of you the version of this calendar that we've updated, and we have our recommendation to you there in color code. But you also have in front of you the original calendar. The original calendar had our last day for students on May the 13th, with May the 16th being closing day. On that calendar, Election Day did not get into the discussion because it was after school was out, and we're in a situation where we cannot have school during an election day because we have polling precincts at our schools. So that being the case, originally that was not part of the issue. Now, as the calendar possibly gets lengthened out with state tournament days and things like that, we have to bring that into discussion. So that's part of the mix. All right, cause for change. We had our 5 tornado days in December the 13th through 17th. So we're in the kind of the holding pattern of waiting to get that, but we're under the impression depression, that's gonna be changed very, very soon. So we're thinking those are gonna be considered disaster days, and we will get credit for those. So we're under the assumption that we can simply add, we had another day missed in March, March 16th, where we were fortunate enough to win the region and go to referee and represent the 3rd region. And so we had a day of missed instruction there. It wouldn't fit into the NTI, formalities there. So it's just simply a missed day, so we added that on. So May 16th is now our last day for kids. We can use election day as a closing day, as a professional day. Just the election part, you can't have students on campus, but you can have working staff. So we were considering moving the election day to a closing day. And something else going on there, with a variable calendar, the way that's calculated, we have what's called variable credit days. And those have to find slots on the calendar, and we had those located at the end of the calendar. Part of the update, we're recommending to the board, we put 5 of those 6 days up into the 5 spring break days. And then that would leave one of the variable credit days to be left in May 18th. Now, where that's some of the principals are wanting to get summer school going, this and that. We could have a discussion on the variable calendar and how that works with variable credit days. But that's one of the recommendations, is to go ahead and move those 5 of the 6 days from the end of the calendar in the original. When you see it there in the original calendar, there's some color-coded days. We're recommending 5 of those 6 be bumped up to the spring break days. That doesn't affect staff as far as working those actual days. It's just where we have placeholders on the calendar. And
The main thing, excuse me, Grant, the main thing is that it helps us potentially start summer school earlier.
yes,
And that's the big deal, that's a big deal for, I think, parents that want to go on vacation. And if we can start that maybe as early as May 24th, we don't have that set yet, but you can't start summer school on one of those days. It's placeholder day. We have to back up after, so if we can move 5 of them, they're just placeholders. We can move 5 for spring break when nobody's, staff's not in anyway, or, certified certainly, then that would allow them potentially, we're going to have a meeting on that next week if this passes, to start a week earlier on summer school, which I think maybe you get more kids willing to do that before they go on vacation sometime in June. So that's the main reason. Really, that's just placeholder days put into a place that won't get in our way. That's what it amounts to.
that's pretty much it. I'm trying to think, Mr. Davis, if there's anything else, but like he said, it's all contingent on state legislators approving that. And we feel like, from what they're hearing, that will, it's not a done deal, but it's at a stage we feel very confident.
And if it does, if we meet again, and just back it all up.
And the simple fix there would be, we have 5 days to make up, and you would just simply go to May the 24th. And so that would be a pretty easy fix. You just add 5 instructional days.
And it also, though, move graduation, so we're certainly hoping that doesn't happen.
Yes.
So Don, I think we discussed at the board meeting the other day, if we do have to back that up, then graduation will be set for the 27th. Is that
I
right?
think it's what you said, that's a Saturday, I do believe.
Right. 27th is Friday.
Friday?
2 weeks from birthday.
She has gone through that, all right.
Yeah.
That's one I don't have straight in my head.
Right.
I think that's right. Stacy, you remember that? I know you writing that down too. The
I think I wrote it
contingency
down because I
plan
had to plan my work schedule.
was we finished on the 24th, and I think we went to the 20th. I think that is
I
correct.
think that's it too.
Yeah.
It was 2 weeks.
Yeah. Is there any other questions or discussion on the calendar?
We can do nothing.
I'm out of our hands at
It
this
is
point.
what it is.
I have a motion by Mr. Johan, second by Mr. Bowers. And all in favor of considering amending the 21-22 calendar, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Aye, you're none. All right, so moving on now to approval of the contract with KSBA. And as Mr. Davis has announced, he is retiring effective June 30th. So we as a board will have to go through the process process of searching for another superintendent. So we must first approve the contract with KSBA to help us facilitate that search. And this will be my second time, thank you, going through this process. It's so fun. Anyway, I will need a motion to approve first the contract with KSBA.
I'll make a motion to approve.
A motion by Ms. Wells,
Second.
second by Mr. Bowers. And all those in favor of approving the contract with KSBA, please say aye. All opposed? I hear none.
You all take payment plan? Started on the payment.
60 months, we can do that, that'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, so now we'll move down to approval of payment to KSBA for facilitating the superintendent search. And let's see. So the facilitator, as we see in our agreements, $6,000 fee plus mileage. So this motion would be to approve that payment to KSBA for helping us with facilitating the superintendent search. Any questions? We've used this process before, so. All right. Making a motion.
Yes.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Joker, and second by Ms. Wells. All in favor of approving payment to KSBA for facilitating our superintendent search, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? I hear none. And then, overall search plan for Muhlenberg County Schools. And this basically outlines, our agenda for, having the search performed, so. I need a motion for the search plan. Motion by Mr. Joker, second by Ms. Wells. All in favor of approving the search plan, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? I hear none, and we are down to adjournment. Or you gotta do all that before?
Yeah, I'll probably,
I'm sorry.
it's part of the meeting, so.
I'm sorry. I forgot it was an open session, sorry.
Don't adjourn because we're in trouble. If we
Yeah,
adjourn.
I'm not gonna do that. I'm on my agenda over here.
Well, my part's just a sub part of the agenda, item number, 7, okay?
Right, so
I'm
we're
part-
still
I'm
with
part
you.
of- I'm part of this, so, the agenda I sent up.
It's been a little bit since I had to do that, so I'm sorry, I
24 hours at
apologize.
least, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'll be 24 more hours.
Ooh,
So-
we don't wanna do that.
Well, I want to apologize for y'all's time here.
Yes,
That you have to spend
you should.
and excuse
Nice
myself.
to meet you, Mr. Davis, and congratulations.
Thank you. He recommends it.
He's going over all this stuff, never mind.
All right, can I take the liberty?
You absolutely may.
Let me give you some information here, I'm gonna leave something for this.
I was trying to overlook you, I guess, so we're even.
Oh, I'm sorry. I met everybody a while ago, I didn't meet you,
okay.
so, okay. They were dropping all the cars. Give me some contact information here.
I'll do it real quick.
This right here. I think you have my contact information. Are you the meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Forward secretary. All right. First of all, will it be okay if it's gonna be a rather lengthy, it's probably another hour and a half, so it's, I prefer not to
It's
stay.
fine, yeah.
And I can look better. Let me share with you first of all a few things. First of all, I want to say thank you to the board for allowing KSBA to be a part of this process. I heard Ms. Stephanie say earlier, and Mr. Davis say earlier, it's a process. It's not just, advertise a job and then hire somebody. It's a process. And KSBA has a process that we use. We use across the state anytime we work with the district. So the process is pretty much the same if you're in eastern, northern, or western Kentucky. There's 3 of us that work KSBA. I'm only three. My region runs from Fulton County up to Meade County over to I'm the far west. I actually I'm not a Frankfort person, okay? I've always lived in western Kentucky. I live in Lyon County. I'm a retired educator, 29 years. My last 9 years I spent as superintendent in Lyon County and McCracken County. So I was on the other side of the fence of this for 2 different searches. So I went through that part of the search. I've been working with I've been retired for 5 years, and I've been working with KSBA and superintendent searches for 3 now. So that's a little bit about me. You'll know where I live. I'm a native Western Kentuckian. I'm just right here with you. Okay, so again, thank you for the opportunity to work with you. Let me also say a special thank you to Miss Melody. She's tremendous. I've been working with. Talked to her last Friday for the first time, and we've been in communication just about every day on something already. So she's tremendous, and I appreciate her willingness to work with me on this process. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. It's a lot of information to cover, and it's informal. Stop me at any point in time you have a question, or you don't understand, or you say, let's back up, okay? So, in your folder, you have a packet of information. This part of the agenda, the first part of it is the explanation of the search process. So let me go over that with you, kind of where you can understand what we're looking at in the next few weeks. You can go in your packet to, I think it's the 3rd page. It will say at the top, overview of superintendent search process. And this is kind of the process that we use with KSBA when we conduct superintendent searches. I'll go through each one of these, and then after I go through each one of these points, I'll kind of come back and summarize where you'll get a better idea of what this search looks like, okay? So number 1, conduct a planning meeting with the board. That's what we're doing today. So today we're going to talk about your timeline, what criteria that you want to see in a new superintendent. We're going to develop the advertisement that's going to be at KSBA. KSBA will post the job, accept applications. So applications will not come through the board. They actually go to KSBA. Then we're going to talk about establishing the screening committee, which is a huge part of this process. And my understanding is Ms. Melody is my contact person. She will be the legs of the district during that time, and we'll be communicating a lot during that process of getting the screening committee put together. And then we're going to talk about the charge to the committee and kind of wrap up the meeting. So that's number 1 is today. Number 2, develop an advertisement and recruitment information. That is what we're doing today as well. Number 3, advertise and recruit. We're going to do that between this meeting and the second meeting. Okay, so there's going to be a period of time that we're going to advertise and accept applications. Number 4, work with the district to establish the screening committee. That will be done between now and the next meeting as well. Number 5, assemble all materials needed for the screening committee. The screening committee will meet 4 times, really. 3 main meetings, and I'll explain that in a minute. But I will be preparing all the material for them as they meet. Number 6, meet with the board and the screening committee to discuss the details. That will be at the next meeting, the second meeting. The board meets with the screening committee. You give them their charge, what you want them to do, and then the board is out of the picture for 2.5 meetings. And the screening committee does their work, and they come back and report. Okay. Number 7, I'll be working with the screening committee to develop a list of recommended candidates. That happens between meetings 2, 3, and 4. Number 8, then after meetings 2, 3, and 4, number 8, you meet with the screening committee to review recommended candidates. So meeting number 5, the screening committee meets back with the board. They give you the recommendations, and then their part of the process is over, and the board begins their process of looking at all applications and interviewing and hiring superintendent. Number 9, is work with the board with the search process. That begins at meeting number 5 until our superintendent is in place and the contract is signed. Okay? So what's this really look like? Kind of give you, so the day's the planning meeting. The next meeting is what we call the joint meeting between the board and the screening committee. So meeting number 2, the board meets with the screening committee, gives them their charge, and then the board dismisses. At that meeting, the screening committee then stays after the second half of the meeting and starts the process of reviewing applications and screening these applicants. And so they'll meet again in meeting number 3. They'll meet again in meeting number 4. After meeting number 4, they've come up with their recommendations. And then they come back to the second joint meeting, meeting number 5, and that's when they meet with you briefly and share their recommendations, and then you start the process of interviewing and hiring a superintendent. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's a process, a pretty lengthy process. All right, so probably the most difficult part of today is developing a timeline. So in your packet, you will see a sheet of paper that says Muhlenberg County Superintendent Search, and it's got, for your mental HD, this is what it looks like right here, okay? This is a timeline. So, I called KSBA yesterday in Frankfurt and talked to my contact person and said, I'm meeting with Muhlenberg County in the morning. My hope is to be back home by lunchtime sometime today and send you the advertisement. Hopefully the job is going to be posted today. That's my goal. Of course, they're an hour ahead of us, so I've got to get home and whatever y'all share with me today, I have to get it formalized and sent up there. The latest it would be posted is Monday, but my goal is to get back home and get it there before they leave the office this afternoon and get everything posted, okay?
When?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a question?
You got anytime. You
Just
can.
checking.
Yes,
That is also going to be posted through our website, is that correct?
absolutely. And I'm glad you said that because if I don't say anything else, the most important thing I say today is the KEPS website. It needs to be posted there, because if we post it at KSBA and it's not posted at KEPS, the official website is the KEPS. So Frank, KDE is going to say, well, you didn't post it correctly. So it's got to be posted through KEPS
And on our site.
and on your site,
And post it through.
and I'll post it through KSBA. Yeah, thank you for saying that. Because that's the most important thing. Okay. So I'm going to put down, I'm praying that it gets posted today. Okay, that's what we're, can you post it from Muhlenberg today, from your
If
side?
I have what I need with documentation wise,
Okay, and they'll just need to direct them to KSBA for the application.
we did that on the last one.
And it's simple. I mean, it's simple from our end. It's just say, go to KSB website, and the next thing that we go over is going to show you how to get to the website, okay? All right. So hopefully it's going to be posted today. So today is March the 25th, correct? So advertising begins and screening committee organized. It's either going to be March 25th or March 28th. All right, so I'm hoping today, because that saves us 3 days. Is what I'm hoping. But worst case scenario, I'm going to say March 28th, and let's work from the March 28th date. Because I can't guarantee it's going to be posted today. So let's work from the March 28th date. So this is the hardest part of today, is this timeline. Law requires that you post a job for 15 days. Okay? We typically recommend 30 days posted for superintendent jobs. That's a board decision.
Why so long?
Why so long? Well, the law used to say 30 days, okay? And it just changed 2 or 3 years ago. The application itself would probably take somewhere through KSBA, probably about 8 hours to fill out. Because it's an application plus there's a series of 8 questions that are fairly lengthy. It tells you a lot about an applicant if you read the questions and the responses to it. So I just need to know from the board how many days. All right, and the other part of this, let me also explain this, and we'll go over this in just later in the meeting. We have to have time to get the screening committee in place. The screening committee, it will probably take a couple of weeks to get everybody in place.
It makes sense now,
Okay.
30 days.
So you can't just snap your fingers and say, this is the screening committee. It's an election, it's a process. So it can be anywhere between 15 and 30. If you don't want it to wait for 30 days, you can say it's post 22 days. I mean, just, it has to be a minimum of 15. And I've known districts to post 45 days. I would definitely not recommend anything past 30 we're sitting here at the end of March now. And so time is of the essence. You're not in a difficult situation, but you don't want to lengthen this any further than you have to either, okay? So, whatever the board tells me, that's what we're gonna work with as a time.
I'm thinking 30 days, you're going, this is my third one, and
Yes.
I think most of the other ones we posted for 30 days.
Okay.
Since this is gonna be 30 days, that gives, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to say, we'll work off of March 25th day, because officially it's gonna be posted today here, right? Okay. So the official timeline, regardless of what KSBA do, will be March 25th. So the 30 days, and I usually have these counted out, but I didn't know how the boards want to go today. So March 25th is the first day. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So the 30 days would end on a weekend. It would be April 23rd. Make sure I count that right again. March 25th, 1, 2. So applications would close on April 23rd. Okay? So the next thing we have to decide is, when do you want to meet for the second joint meeting? That's what happens there in the second joint meeting, the first group meeting. That's when the board briefly, your meeting, your part of that meeting will only be about 10 or 15 minutes. You'll meet with the screening committee, you're gonna tell them, this is the criteria we're looking for, this is how many candidates we want you to recommend back to us. And the board's then gonna dismiss, and the screening committee is gonna stay and start the process of weeding through these applicants, okay? So, since it closes on the 23rd, KSBA will be back on the office on the 25th. They need to give me that day probably. They're gonna send me all the applicants. I've gotta get things ready for you. So anywhere after, starting on the 26th through that week, I will be able to meet with you. Just don't need to be on that Monday because I gotta get information from them, get it prepared to bring to that meeting, okay? So, tell me when you want to meet. My schedule's open that week.
Which week is it?
The week of April 25th through the 29th, really the 26th through the 29th.
Assume it needs to be as early as possible, just for timing.
I would recommend the quicker, the sooner the better. Closer to the 26th, better.
the
Be a
Thursday,
Thursday.
the 28th is a Thursday, would that work for you?
That, yeah, it'd be fine.
My schedule's difficult, it
Okay.
comes out like a month and a half in advance.
thing. So we're looking at April 28th. At what time? Eight o'clock on April 28th?
Yeah.
Is that agreed?
Eight o'clock.
Okay. Now, meetings, where it says second screening committee, third screening committee, that's meetings 3 and 4. It does not involve the board at all. The only person that's going to involve the board is the board member that serves on the screening committee. Okay. So, I just need, let's skip, all right. It's always difficult to explain this. So let's go down to the joint meeting between the board and screening committee. How much timeline, and I'm looking at between the joint meeting, the first joint meeting and the last joint meeting, how much time do you want to give the screening committee to review applicants, make phone calls on references and interview these applicants that they're going to recommend to you? I'll give you what generally is done, okay? That's usually between the first joint meeting and the second screening committee meeting. It's usually between a week and 2 weeks. I wouldn't recommend it any quicker than a week, but I wouldn't put it past 2 weeks, okay? And I probably recommend closer to a week with the time frame we're looking at, okay? And then between the second screening committee and the third screening committee, it's usually, again, anywhere from a week to 2 weeks between the two meetings. And then between the third meeting, the screening committee, and the joint meeting, it can be just a couple of days, because what's going to happen from there, the screening committee members are going to formalize their recommendations to you, and they need a day or two to do that, because it's going to be a formal presentation they're going to give to you. So my recommendation, and this is a board decision, I would probably, since we're fairly late in the season, and it's not rushing the screening committee, it's just putting them on a little quicker timetable, I would probably recommend a week between both of their meetings. And it gives them time to review applicants and also make these phone calls, okay? And that's plenty of time. Most of the time, if I'm starting with the district in January, we usually give the screening committee 2 weeks because there's no rush at that time. But because we're later in the season, and it's not really rushing the screening committee, they don't have as much free time. They just got to get with it when they get appointed. I would recommend probably around a week between their meetings. So if that's the case, the board meets on April 28th, and then the screening committee meets after that, when would you want the screening committee to meet? Would you want to give them a week or 2 weeks? If you give them a week, they're going to meet the week. They're going to meet sometime around in the week of May 2nd through the 6th, more towards the end of the week.
A lot of that depends on how many applicants they have.
Absolutely.
I mean,
And I will tell you this season, there's been fewer applicants that KSBA has seen in a while. I'm currently working with Recruitment County. They had 11 applicants. Campbell County, which pays pretty high, they had 8 applicants is all they had. That's in northern Kentucky, where there's usually a large applicant pool. If you'd asked me a year ago or 2 years ago how many applicants I would expect, probably 15, 20. I'm probably expecting on the lower end of that this year, maybe even a few less than 15, just based on what the trend is across the state. And I don't know why that trend, maybe it's COVID has scared everybody away from the superintendent seat, I don't know. But it seems like and this may be an exception to the rule, Muhlenberg may be an exception to the rule, but there's fewer applicants this year than in the past. Hopefully that's not the case with Muhlenberg County. So, you just share with me when you want the screening committee to meet back.
I'd rather give them 2 weeks, let them pad them real good.
2 weeks between each two, both of them? Okay, so that if you do that, you're looking at the week of the 9th through the 13th, they meet back for the second screening committee, is that correct? So I'm just gonna pencil in a day, I just say May the 11th, if that's okay? Because this is not a board meeting, and the screening committee may have some conflicts. They have some wiggle room to change that meeting date, as long as they meet back at the correct time at the second joint meeting, okay? So let's just pencil in May the 11th
For the second joint
for
meeting.
the second screening committee, I'm sorry.
Oh,
And then are you wanting, Mr. Bowers, are you wanting to give them 2 more weeks to make phone calls and stuff? If that's the case, you're getting into the last week of May for the third screening committee.
I'm thinking maybe 2 weeks for the first one, but then like a week to get stuff finalized for the board.
Okay, but
Because
now,
I'm thinking when we did it before, by that last one, you're kind of farming it out and different ones are making calls and,
yeah.
you know, it's kind of, you're spreading the.
Okay, let me ask you, let's go back and look at it this way. When do you want the screening committee to give you the recommendations? That will be the joint meeting between the board and screening committee. Give me that date and we can work backwards, how about that?
Next week.
If you can give me that date, we can work backwards. This will be the joint meeting between the board and screening committee. That's when you receive the applicants from, the recommendations from the screening committee. When do you want that to happen? A minimum of 2, maximum, I would say 4, from April 28th day. That makes sense?
Like the last week in May, is that,
Okay? And then, and that's fine,
I'm just,
it's whatever the board wants. You just tell me the date that you want the applicants, and then we will work back.
Can I, you don't care if I interject just now a little bit? Okay. Just, and I think probably it would depend on, you know, who the applicants are, who is chosen, but you would be into June, bringing someone in, to interview, probably, if you waited that late. You want to, you know, hopefully we could get somebody in place by July 1, so that is pushing that timeline just a little bit. You know, so if you backed it up just a little bit, getting someone in, let's say that if it was an internal applicant and an internal person was chosen, trying to put that domino effect into place to try to get someone in a position they vacated for school to start, for someone to have a principal or something like that. That's my only concern with that. I'm not, it's your call, but that would be, June interviews would make it, you know, a little bit more tight for your schedule, depending on being able to schedule them for interviews to come in and actually meet.
It would be nice if you could name someone by June 1st, at the latest, probably. But, again, we're
starting
not
this
happy.
late, that's gonna be,
What's that?
I said, starting this late though, that's gonna be,
It's gonna push
if you
it.
vet everybody like they need to be vetted.
Yeah. And this is totally a board decision. You tell me, and we're gonna.
What about if we got it done, like maybe the week before Memorial Day?
I was gonna say, we definitely need to do something for Memorial Day, because that'll kind of set us back even more on the other one.
Okay, so
Making plans.
you want like applicant, so I'm just throwing a date out, May 24th. Would that be a suitable date for everyone to meet back? That would be the joint meeting with the board and the screening committee. That's when you're gonna get the recommendations. Is that suitable to everyone? That's before Memorial Day. Okay, is that okay?
Tuesday, the 24th.
May 24th is 8 o'clock. Is that what you're looking at again as a meeting?
screening committee?
That would be the joint meeting with the board and screening committee. Now, we're gonna work backwards to fill in these other boxes here in just a minute. 8 o'clock, is that agreeable or not agreeable?
8 in the morning? Yeah.
Because that's the joint meeting between the board and screening committee. That's when you'll get that. So that's. So we tentatively set the second screening committee for May the 11th. That's a Wednesday. I'm gonna back that up until Monday, because that's going to again, this is the second screening committee meeting and the third screening committee is just kind of a placeholder. The screening committee will actually set those timelines in stone when they meet, because they may have some conflicts. It's not board meetings. So I want to say May the 9th will be the second screening committee meeting. And then I want to say May the 19th is the third screening committee, with May 24th being the final meeting. Okay, so, Ms. Kim, since you came in, I'll try to catch you up here, and I want to confirm these dates with everybody, make sure we're all on the same page, okay? So, the board has agreed to advertise this job for 30 days. Muhlenberg County Board of Education is going to start the advertisement today, March the 25th. I'm going to try to get that advertisement on KSBA website today as well, but if not, it will be March 28th that KSBA posted. Regardless, the 30 days will start running when Muhlenberg posted. Okay. Applications would close on April the 23rd. The first joint meeting of the board and screening committee, I just thought about this. I don't know if we can meet at 8 o'clock in the morning, because you're going to have teachers on that committee
And parents.
and parents.
The 28th.
On April 28th.
I mean, I can do anything on that day.
It's probably going to have to be an afternoon or evening meeting. Because teachers can't get out of their, they're classified.
5:30.
April 28th at 5:30. Is that good? Okay, then a place set for the second screening committee meeting with realization that could change a little bit. It's May 9th. The third screening committee meeting is tentatively set for May 19th. I haven't set times for those because that's just screening committee members. And then the joint meeting between the board and screening committee is set for May 24th. Now that's at 8 o'clock. Again, that's going to require, I just listened to the calendar. Is school out already at that time? School's out on by May 24th, correct? So the only person that would affect that may not be able to be here would be a parent. That serves on screening committee. Evening should be fine?
Yeah.
Okay, are you saying 5:30 again on May 24th?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have to have some
Now, the board interview candidates and new superintendent names are, again, these are not written in stone, they're just kind of a guide for the board. So if you get the applicants on May 24th, when do you think you might start interviewing candidates? The next week?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, how many we have.
June 1st?
I kind of like to have them all interviewed before the end of the month. That way.
How many does the screening committee, is there a certain number they bring back to us?
We're going, that's the next, that's on down to the end of your head up there. It's going to be up to the board. The board makes that decision on how many you want them to recommend. It's typically between 3 and 5.
But we have the option of looking at everything too, right?
Yes, ma'am. talk about that as well, thank you.
We can choose which ones we want to interview after we get the names.
Absolutely.
Right, we don't
Yeah.
have to interview just because we get the
Yeah.
recommendation.
And if we don't want to interview any of them, we can send them back.
Yeah.
Start all over.
Totally, after the screening committee does their part of the process, it's totally in the board's hands on how you want to move forward after that. Absolutely. Well, when do you want the new superintendent named, then we can work back on the interviews? Do you want it named by, I'm looking June 10th, that will give you a couple weeks to interview. That's a Friday.
Sometimes you want to interview people, you have a conflict with their work dates.
And this would not be in stone, it's just a goal for the board to work towards. You can always adjust that date earlier or later.
We can set it aggressively, but then
Yeah. You want to say June 10th, then it would be when we name the new superintendent as a tentative date?
That should give us time to look them over pretty good and decide if we want one.
And so the interviews would be, I'm gonna say anywhere between probably, used to put May 31st through June 9th, how about that? That gives you ample, that gives you some leeway when we interview these candidates.
what was the last date you just gave?
The board interviews candidates between May 31st and June 9th. With the new superintendent to be named tentatively by June the 10th. Okay. So since we made some more changes, I'm gonna run down these real quickly, these dates again, because these are important. Advertising begins, the screening committee organized. March 25th, it's gonna be advertised with Muhlenberg County Schools and KEPS. Hopefully that's the same date for KSBA, but the KSBA no later than 28th. Applications close April the 23rd. There's a joint meeting of the board and screening committee, and the first screening committee meeting will be April 28th at 5:30, not 8 o'clock,
Can we
5:30,
do 29?
April 28th.
So that's a conflict.
Oh,
Can we do the 29th?
Did you say you could do the 29th or no, you couldn't?
That's your off day, but it depends on what time it is.
5:30.
5:30?
5:30, oh, that'd be fine.
Okay.
April is what, 29th?
29th,
Thank you.
That's a Friday, right?
Something else, that was Thursday.
April 29th at 5:30.
Thank you.
Second committee meetings will be May 9th. Third screening committee will be May 19th. Joint meeting between the board and screening committee is May 24th at 5:30. Board interviews candidates from May 31st to June 9th. New superintendent will be named tentatively by June the 10th. Because we made it, and I just want to make sure, because we changed the date, by April 29th at 5:30, correct? And that's a Friday, that's the joint meeting of the board and screening. Again, the board will only meet for about 10, 15 minutes that night. The screening committee meets for us. Okay,
Does
that's
the
probably,
screening committee have a problem on a Friday night at 5:30?
can't answer that question.
I don't know, I'm just
Nobody
saying.
could,
Then what happens if every person couldn't come to that meeting? Do they all have to be present?
they need to be. Now, here's what I would suggest, is when we talk about, getting the screening committee together, I would probably publicize these dates. That way they know ahead of time, hey, the next meeting is April 29th, and I need to be there,
They make arrangements.
so make arrangements ahead of time.
They don't matter what
That's
day
very
they
fair.
they have to make arrangements.
Because they don't need to be to get elected, then they know April 29th to be, oh, I can't be there.
Yeah.
So if they know ahead of time, hopefully they can
Okay, I think
arrange their schedule. Is that okay? And you can tell them tentatively May 9th and May 9th, there's some room to change those two dates, but April 29th is a set stone. Okay. All right, thank you for that part of the meeting. I promise you, that's the most difficult part of the meeting, it always is. Okay, let's go to the agenda, which is number 3. And 4 and 5. We will work with 3, 4, and 5 at the same time. So if you'll go in your packet of information where it says Kentucky Superintendent Vacancy. This is where we're going to talk about the criteria that you're looking for a superintendent. That's in the first paragraph. And I took the liberty of writing a generic advertisement for you to look at and make changes to, okay? Do that for every district. Second paragraph is information about Muhlenberg County in general. And I don't live here, so, but you may want to make changes to that. The third sentence is about the salary, and we can make changes to that. I'm just giving you something to look at. The back page is how an applicant goes to apply for the job. And now we can say the application deadline is April the 23rd. So that's been decided, April 23rd is the application deadline.
And that, I hate to be specific, 11:59 p.m.
Yes.
That night, correct?
It'd be open all day until midnight that. Thank you. Okay, so, the first paragraph, let's look at that first. I'm gonna give you a moment to look at that, make any changes to it, scratch it, and start over from the beginning. In your packet, there is also some candidate criteria, just to get your brain thinking about, are there other criteria that we want from a superintendent that's not included in this first paragraph? Or do we want to change some of these? So this is the criteria you're looking for a superintendent, and this is also the advertisement that's going on KSBA's website, okay? So take a moment, read paragraph number 1, and make notes, make changes, how do you want this to be read, and then we'll make those changes as you have a chance to look at it, okay?
Did you have something from last time?
That's what I was
I
thinking.
don't have it last time, I don't have.
We might be able to pull it, would y'all want copies?
Yeah, that
Because
was,
we had really
If you
worked
want,
on that one,
Yeah,
yeah.
we did a lot of work on
Yeah,
it.
I thought it would be easy.
We'll see if we can get it for you.
okay, can we go ahead and move on with the agenda? Maybe
That's okay with me.
you may go ahead and go.
I'm gonna stay in here then, I'll have Sherry.
Okay, all right. While we're looking for that, we'll just go to,
That will make it easier.
and I don't have access to that, I'm sorry.
That's weird.
Let's-
And it could be.
Let's wait for Miss Melody to get back, because she really don't need to hear about the screen, because she's a key component of that.
Sherry, you wanna look and,
Okay.
and pull that for us.
All right, so let's look at the screening committee and go through that. So why is there a screening committee? Well, there's really 2 reasons for the screening committee. Number 1, it's the law. The law says the board must have a screening committee in place. And number 2, to me, the most important reason for a screening committee is you have all your stakeholders having input and giving their input to the board. So that's the most important reason. So, screening committee, the law, if you look at this sheet of paper, it looks right here. This is the KRS that talks about the screening committee. The first paragraph, item number 1, talks about the definition of minority. And that's going to become important as we talk about the screening committee here in just a moment. Number 2, it says each Board of Education shall appoint a superintendent of schools after receiving the recommendations of a screening committee. As Mr. Bowers mentioned earlier, it's only recommendations. After the screening committee gives their recommendations, it is a board decision on how you move forward after that, okay? And I'll make that clear to the screening committee as well when we meet with them at the next meeting. The screening committee is a leg of this board. They do a lot of groundwork for you and a lot of good work. But the final decision is yours as a board, okay? All right, who is on the screening committee? The law says it's composed of 2 teachers. We'll go back and look at these individuals in just a minute. Elected by the teachers in the district. 1 board member appointed by the board chair. So, Ms. Stephanie, and another board meeting, you're going to appoint someone to serve on this committee. 1 principal elected by the principals in the district. 1 parent elected by the presidents of the PTO of the schools in the district. And 1 classified employee elected by the classified employees in the district. Item number F is important here. If a minority member is not elected or appointed to a screening committee in the districts with a minority population of 8% or more, then there's going to be a special election to elect a minority parent. Okay? And I asked Ms. Melody, and she was gracious enough to find out for me from your DPP. Muhlenberg County has 9.5% minority population, which means if a minority is not one of the original 6 members, then we have to have a special election to elect a minority parent to the screening committee. So this screening committee will either have 6 members or 7, depending on the composition of the original 6. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's go in detail and talk about these. Board member is the easiest. So at a board meeting, and it can't be today, because today is a special board meeting, and nothing can be added to the agenda. So whenever you meet again, Stephanie needs to appoint, in your appointment, a board member. It needs to be on the agenda,
Okay.
and it needs to be in the minutes of the board meeting, okay, to be official. So I don't know, when does the board usually meet?
It'll be April, do y'all know of anything that might be a special call between now and then? I don't. It'll be April.
About the time all this starts.
We don't meet again until April 29th, so it
I
can
would
be.
be before then.
Okay,
Yeah, it'll
so you won't have to have a special meeting to do that, you can do it.
be, should be April the 15th, maybe. I'm sorry, that's Friday, April the 14th or the 21st. So we'll be.
Is it 21st?
I think it's the 21st.
I
I'm
think
sorry, it
it's
is the
saying
21st. I
yesterday.
was on the wrong day. Yeah, it's the
So
21st.
it just needs to be on the agenda, nominate somebody and put it in the minutes, okay? And so I'm gonna be talking a lot, Ms. Melody, so.
You want me to come up there? Would that be easier?
It may be, I can look at you here and also at the board. I hate to turn my back to the board,
I
but
don't want you to get a crick in your neck.
Ms. Melody's gonna be doing a lot of this legwork. So, principal, and there's a sheet of paper in, it talks about each one of these individually. The principal representative has to be a head principal, okay?
Okay, can't be an
Law
assistant.
Specific, there's no assistants, it has to be a principal. Usually, there is administrative meetings with the superintendent. That's the easiest way to do it, is that when all the principals are together at one of those meetings, say, hey, you all need to elect one of you to serve on this committee. It's pretty simple.
Let me ask you this, can that be done, through email?
It could,
Not
and we're
best?
gonna talk, I probably not best practice, but it could be, because they probably need to get together and discuss.
But it could be done via Zoom if they're all on the screen?
Could be, yeah. I would-
That's the way we're still doing a lot of our meetings.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Okay, but that's principal, and it's just the principal, the head principals, no assistants, okay? The 2 teacher representatives, and you've got all this information in the packet, okay? The 2 teacher representatives, KSBA recommends that you contact the local KDA president, and they conduct the elections, okay?
You're talking about like our MCEA person.
Now, we have recommendations for them, but it's their election. They can pretty well do the election however they want to. Now, that they're probably gonna ask, because they've probably never done this before, well, why do I do it, you know? But if they don't want help, just let them run the election, they have to elect 2 teachers. But if they ask for help, we say, number 1 here, contact the president of local education association. There needs to be a notification that 2 certified staff members are gonna be on this committee. Person can nominate themselves, or they can if they're a certified member, they can nominate themselves, or they can nominate somebody else. Our suggestion is to prepare a sample ballot and send that out by email, just because you don't want somebody that's been nominated to be accidentally left off of the ballot, and then the election takes place, and then this person says, well, I nominated myself, but I wasn't even on the ballot, you know. So we send out a sample ballot just so that they see what the ballot looks like, and everybody's included that should be included on the ballot. We recommend, after a week to 2 weeks of nominations being open, that it close, send out the sample ballot, and then voting take place, paper ballot. So in each building. So at the secretary's desk or at the counter of the school, there will be a ballot box. Teachers can come in and vote. They would initial when they vote, and then it'll be in a location where it can be observed by someone at all times. And maybe a day or 2 for voting. Then we also recommend that multiple people count these votes, just not one person, because we don't want anybody being accused of doing something incorrectly when they haven't. So for their protection, we say at least 2 people may recount the votes. And definitely keep these ballots. Keep them, okay? So if that makes sense with teachers, just contact the local MCA president.
Now, if ours is Matt Oaks, y'all know. So if he needs help on that, then I'll get with you, we'll talk through this.
Just let them do as much or all of it as they want to do, and if they need help, we'll help.
Okay.
We're not here to tell them how to do their election.
We can give this suggestions, here's how it's done in the past. Because he's very, very good at work with it, so.
If he doesn't want to use that, however he wants to do it. The classified is very similar to the certified, except probably you're going to conduct this election. Okay. Again, we ask that they contact all classified staff that there's a nomination for a position on the screening committee. They can nominate themselves or somebody else. If time permits, we also will recommend sending out a sample ballot to make sure everybody's included on that ballot. Have voting take place. We recommend hard ballots again, so you would need a ballot box at each of the schools, also at the bus garage, here as well. We ask everybody initial when they vote, and then usually a group of 3 to count the votes and the ballots be kept again. Okay? Does that make sense on that one? The parent representative, recommend that you contact PTO presidents. Okay? They actually do elect parent representative. Now, probably the best way to notify parents is there's a sheet of paper in the back here that says parent needed all these. Probably each of your principals would send this out to all the parents. They probably do that, I'm guessing through email. It's probably the main correspondence. They would send that out and receive the nominations, and then they would give you the names they've received, or you could say send it to you. It's the nominations either way. And then after you get all the nominations, the PTO presidents get together off of that list and elect somebody. So you got 5 elementary schools in Muhlenberg County, is that right?
So how does this bring in the middle and high schools?
Okay, good question. It's always a good question. I'm talking to her because she's laying it down. Hope you're able to hear this.
Yep.
Okay. a middle school or high school parent can be nominated, okay? All parents in the district, any parent in the district can be nominated. But only the PTO presidents decide who that person is. So if your middle school has a PTO, their president's involved in this. If your high school has a PTO, they're included in this decision as well. But if they don't, and typically most middle schools and high schools don't, only the PTO presidents can make the decision. But any parent is eligible. So if they have a high school student, they can be nominated, and PTO presidents can elect them.
So basically, when this is sent out, this can be sent out by the principals to parents?
Yes. That's what I would do. I would have the principal send out to parents, and it leaves in the blank for who to send it to, nominations. You know, if you want all nominations sent to you, you can have them sent to you, or you can have them sent to the principals, and the principals can forward them to you. So whichever way. And also, I didn't say this is an example, if the PTO, if the MCEA president wants to use this, if he can use this would be for you if you want to use that, it's classified, just send it out to all
Hey
classified. So
Melanie, I just
there's
went
just
back and I found the advertisement from an old email that I had saved from
That'd be
before.
great.
Awesome.
It's good for something.
I'm a hoarder of emails, what can I say?
I think she found it.
Oh, I can't find them.
This has got some of the description, I think, of what she's gonna.
It's printing now.
Okay, she's making, and then applicants go to KSBA, so, yeah. This, she's in the comments.
So to go back to this, that pretty, no, that's fine, I'm great, I'm glad you were able to find it. So if, that includes the original 6. If there is not a minority in the original 6, then we will have a special election for a parent minority to serve on this committee. And we will go through that process if that happens. So since we have a 30-day posting, that gives us ample time
Okay.
to do that. If we had a 15-day posting, it would be pushing us. So do these original 6 make sense to you? On what to do? And you should have it in hand. You got my phone number, my email, I'm available anytime, okay? So just call me.
But I need to get on this now.
I would no later than Monday, Friday. Yeah. You may take today to kind of read through, make sure everything's straight in your mind, and call me if you got any questions. Are there any questions of the board on the screening committee, the composition of it, or anything?
I'm wondering about the PTO president. Are they gonna get together and then choose a candidate together?
They'd have to,
How many PTO presidents we have?
I think there's one in every elementary school. So those 5 would come together after every
So
nomination.
no middle school?
That's kind of what, because that was my question. The middle and high school, we don't have anything.
Okay.
So any parent can be nominated, but the PTO presidents will come and take the nominations and pick. And that's correct.
absolutely.
So
And
that's not a
PTO
vote, that's
president-
just a nomination, that's not a,
It's just a vote between the PTO presidents.
that's the only vote, yeah. So there's not a vote for all parents to vote for a parent, it's just PTO presidents choosing
Got it.
members,
Okay.
And the PTO president can be one of those
nominated.
nominated. Okay?
My understanding of that was anybody can put their name in for nomination.
Absolutely.
And there's no set
Any
number of
parent.
nominations, correct? There's no set number of nominations
No,
on
sir.
there.
No, it's been, you could have 20, 25.
They'll just pick the person.
Take it first. Yep. Okay. Any questions about the screening committee? I think we're good.
I'm sure I'll have some.
Well, great, I mean, so just
Just not
contact.
today.
Just contact, okay. And it's usually one of the hardest parts of this process, is because there's usually a kink that we don't see, that questions asked that we have to, maybe have to research or whatever, but it's, we'll get an answer for you, okay? All right, so that's the screening committee. So now that was item number 6. We'll go back back to items number 3, 4, and 5. Do we have copies of that already? Do the board get copies of the previous?
Oh, yes,
All
yes,
right.
I'm sorry, I didn't know what you were.
Appreciate it. Okay. I'll give you a chance to look at that.
Did she bring bourbon on the meeting day?
Excuse me?
Did she bring bourbon on the meeting day?
We might need it.
She's the distillery. Miss Kim owns a distillery here.
Oh, really?
Yes. After hours, you can visit.
Good.
Then we can go eat.
Yeah. I'm one.
So, after the board has a chance to look at this, so you give me the direction, how you go with this advertisement. I'm seeing a discrepancy on the student population. I've got 4,800 and I see 5,032. I tell you where I got that information. I went on this, it was the SAR report, the student attendance, annual attendance report. And that was the last one I could find, it was 4,800.
Lost population, we're down like 42 now.
Oh, you're down by 42? So I need to change that to 4,200.
I can get you the right number.
Oh, it's just an estimate anyway.
Yeah.
If 42's. Okay. I think the last SAR report I could find was 18-19 school year. I don't think the districts had to do that with
I was
COVID. did they?
because we've used 18, 19 numbers this year.
Yes.
Okay, so, description of your candidate, the criteria. Tell me how you want to word that. You want it, what was the last time? Or do you
I think we
want
want to add in, under where it says the successful candidate should be a dedicated educator that promotes collaborative teamwork, creating high performance, and then add in accountability from students and staff,
high performance
and accountability.
and, okay. So that sentence should read, a successful candidate should be a dedicated educator that promotes collaborative teamwork, creating high performance and accountability from students and staff. So, how you want to do it? Okay. Any other changes?
I think, yeah,
I think we really tweaked it last time.
yeah,
So that's how you want paragraphs you want to read?
that was easy,
All right, it is easy, because it usually takes a little time.
yeah.
What about, and so Muhlenberg County itself, which I had in the second paragraph, are you okay the way it reads here? Muhlenberg County is located in western Kentucky, near the cities of Bowling Green, Madisonville, and Owensboro, Kentucky. Is that how you want to read it?
Yeah, instead of giving mileage, you know. And people can Google anymore.
Absolutely.
Most of the
Yeah.
applicants are gonna be local or nearby town, they already know where.
Because it's public knowledge, we kind of got a candidate from Montana.
Really?
Yeah, they really did. Montana.
They must like
Yeah.
no snow.
And so I don't know if you'll get a candidate out of state, but likely there'll be at least a couple of
We
candidates.
did
I think we
before.
screened them out.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think we had some.
Evansville, wasn't it?
I don't care where they're from, they do a good job.
Remember where, I think it
Yeah,
was
they were,
South.
yeah.
We had 3 out of state.
Last time?
I got my stuff in one.
You so good.
What were you on?
I'm telling you, I'm
That's
a
why we
winner
made
of
a schedule, put up with the headache.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, there's a sentence on the salary will be competitive. Candidates kind of want to know. So we use the word competitive, we use negotiable, we use commensurate. How do you want that to read on the advertisement?
I last time that we did, the salary will be commensurate with rank and experience.
Okay. Is that how you wanna read it again?
Yeah, that's it, plain and simple, and leaves no doubt of anything.
Commensurate with.
Rank and experience.
Okay. Y'all are easy on that, huh?
We got that.
Spent 30 minutes with the board on this right here.
We got that
If it
educated
ain't broke, don't fix it.
Change the dates.
Yeah,
Okay, so make sure I'm clear, 'cause I want to do what the board's directing me to do. It reads exactly as it's written here, with the exception of adding and accountability after performance. And then the salary will be commensurate with rank and experience with the contractor begin no later than July 1, 2022. Correct? Okay. Any other changes? Okay. So we're down to agenda item, I thought that, agenda somewhere. We've talked about item number 1, we've done item number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, we're down to charge to the committee. This is, how many candidates does the board want to be recommended for the screening committee?
I'd say 5.
5. And again, because they recommend 5, you don't have to interview all 5 of them.
Yeah.
Interview 2 of them, 1 of them, 3 of them.
And I guess it could be, they don't have 5 that they feel should be recommended from the
That
initial.
was my next question. Thank you. She
She's
been
not
through this
waiting.
process before.
banker.
What if the screening committee goes through this and they say, we just don't have 5, if we think meet the criteria, and they only can find 3, or is the board okay with 3 then?
3.
Okay, yeah.
So there's some
Max
5
of
max with the liberty of being less than that?
If they're not, don't make
Yeah,
the
if
same.
you don't have, you can't extend time and interview process, then you'll be opening school
Yeah,
without a superintendent.
absolutely.
So
You'd
three
have
will
to
do.
name an interim at that point in time if you did that.
Right.
So we want to avoid that if we
Yeah.
can get a good candidate. Okay.
Yes, 3, will be good with 3 if that comes to it.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna put 5 down with the liberty of knowing that, hey, the screening committees, there's just not 5 applicants we feel good about applying or recommending, they can be less than 5. I'll share that with the screening committee, okay? Okay. Last item on the agenda is release of information, the board spokesperson. Usually during this process, we have, it's not a formal nomination, but it's an understanding from the board that if the media comes to speak to somebody, they're speaking to one person. And that's typically the chair, but it does not have to be the chair. The reason why we recommend that is 5 board members can be saying the same thing but using different words and it's interpreted differently about the meeting, okay?
Especially me. I can mess it up.
So if the board has a consistent message, it's easier to have a consistent message with one person speaking than 5 people speaking. And they can all be 5 saying the same thing, it's just interpreted. So I'll just kind of leave that up to you as a general consensus. Do you want the chair to be the spokesperson to the meeting in this
That's fine,
process? And we ask that everything's kept confidential, okay? Because these applicants have jobs everywhere else, somewhere else, most of them, or all of them. And until it gets to the final stages, it's best if names are not floating out there. It saves their reputation maybe in their existing district. Because if they're a superintendent somewhere else, they may not want their name out,
Yes, I can see that, yeah.
that they're applying somewhere else. Okay, because it could cause them some harm. So, you as a board, other than the board member that's on the screening committee, actually will not see all applicants until that second joint meeting. So you won't even know the names until way into this process. But the screening committee will, and I will emphasize to them confidentiality as well, outside of calling references. And that's just part of the process. They got to do that. Okay. So, I think we've gone through everything. I did not, on item number 5, the advertisement, the advertisement is on the KSBA website. It's viewed by anybody interested in jobs across the state of Kentucky. And like I said, nationally, there are people out of state that apply as well. I did not say that earlier. So, just want to make sure I check my notes, make sure we have gone over everything. I think I've covered everything that I need to cover. Are there any questions or additional comments from the board that we need to clarify? How many of you been through this process before?
All
All of them. Well, that's good.
I've been quiet,
Wow,
they all did.
that's good. Your
Bowles,
experience in this
Mr.
process.
Bowles is the senior one, got three or
Literally.
The senior citizen.
That's unusual to have a board that's been through, all 5 members have been through the process, so that's great.
I haven't been through it in Kentucky, but I've been through it
Okay.
twice elsewhere.
Plus she was a candidate too one time. Not the principal.
That's it.
All right, well, that's wonderful. Experience, that brings a lot of things to the table. So you get through this process. All right, I want to turn it over to you, Ms. Stephanie.
So technically, our vote before should be null because I got ahead of myself, right?
Yes.
So now we have to actually go back and stretch that and approve our search plan for Muhlenberg County Schools.
I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Ms. Wells, second by Mr. Joker. All in favor of approving our search plan for the Muhlenberg County School Superintendent, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I hear none. If there's any further discussion or no further discussion, we'll need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Motion by Ms. Wells, second by Mr. Bowers. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I hear none. We're adjourned.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.